Parents rented out the apartment I bought them and moved into my home. Mom said, "You owe us for raising you." I just smiled and left. Months later, they begged me for $20,000. I still remember the excitement in my mother's voice when I handed her the keys. "Oh, sweetheart, it's beautiful," she gasped, stepping into the spacious new apartment. My father trailed behind, running his hand over the pristine countertops, nodding in approval. "It's bigger than I expected," he admitted, peering out of the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Nice view." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread in my chest. After years of hearing them complain about their old place, how cramped it was, how noisy the neighbors were, how tired they were of climbing 3 flights of stairs, I'd finally been able to give them something better. A real home. A place where they could finally be comfortable. They deserved it. Or at least that's what I had told myself. They had spent years supporting me while I built my career, and now that I was in a position to help them, why wouldn't I? Felt like the right thing to do. The responsible thing. "We're so lucky to have a son like you," my mother said, squeezing my hand. My father nodded in agreement. "Really, we don't know what we'd do without you." I should have recognized the weight of those words. But back then, I was just happy to see them happy. For the first few months, everything seemed perfect. They loved the place. My mother spent her days decorating, sending me endless photos of curtains and furniture, asking for my opinion. My father, usually a man of few words, would occasionally call just to mention how much better he was sleeping without the sounds of their old neighborhood keeping him up. I felt proud, like I had finally given them something meaningful. Then, an incredible career opportunity arose, a high-paying 3-month overseas assignment. It was the kind of project that could open doors for me, so I took it. During those months, my communication with my parents was minimal. Time zone differences, a grueling schedule, and constant travel left me drained. Our conversations were reduced to short text messages. Everything seemed fine, until I came home. I arrived late at night, exhausted but relieved to finally sleep in my own bed. As I unlocked my apartment door, I was already fantasizing about collapsing onto the couch. But when I stepped inside, I froze. The lights were on. The smell of my mother's perfume lingered in the air. And there, sitting comfortably in my living room, were my parents. Feet up on my coffee table. A half-eaten plate of food on my couch. My father flipping through TV channels like he owned the place. I set my bags down slowly. "What are you doing here?" My mother turned with a bright smile. "Oh, sweetheart, you're back. We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." I blinked, still processing the scene in front of me. "Right? And that doesn't answer my question." She waved a hand dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic. We've just been staying here for a little while." A chill ran down my spine. "Why?" There was a brief pause. Then my father cleared his throat. "Well, it just made more sense." I narrowed my eyes. "More sense than what?" My mother hesitated. "Then staying in the new apartment." My stomach twisted. I set my keys on the counter. "Are you telling me you left the place I bought for you? Where are you staying, then?" My father sighed. "About that, I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. We rented it out," my mother admitted, her voice overly casual. "It's bringing in great income, and your place is so spacious. We figured it would be silly to waste money when we could just stay here." I felt a cold rush of anger. I had bought them a home, a place where they could finally live comfortably. And while I was away, they had turned around and rented it out to strangers. To make extra income, while using my home as their own. I clenched my jaw. "So let me get this straight. You've been living here, rent-free, while collecting rent from the place I bought for you." My mother laughed nervously. "Well, when you put it like that." I took a slow, deep breath, gripping the edge of the counter. "How long were you planning on telling me?" "We were going to tell you soon," my father said dismissively. "Don't make such a big deal out of this. It's just temporary." I closed my eyes, trying to keep my temper in check. I had sacrificed so much to make their lives easier. And now, they had not only taken advantage of my generosity, they had manipulated the entire situation to suit themselves. And the worst part? They didn't even think they had done anything wrong. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. This wasn't temporary. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I decided I needed to see things for myself. I drove straight to the apartment. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. The living room wasn't arranged the way my mother had decorated it. The furniture was different. There were shoes by the door that didn't belong to my parents. And on the kitchen counter, half-finished coffee cups set next to a set of car keys. This wasn't just an empty rental. Someone was living here. I turned the corner and almost crashed into a woman in a bathrobe. "Oh," she gasped, clutching her chest. "You scared me." I took a step back. I'm sorry. Who are you?" She blinked at me in confusion. "I'm Rachel. I live here." "Who are you?" I felt my stomach drop. "I own this apartment," I said slowly. Her eyes widened. "Oh, you must be their son." She broke into a smile. "Your parents told us all about you." "Did they?" "I bet they left out the part where I bought them this place." I forced a polite nod. "And you rent this from them?" "Yeah," she said, stretching lazily. "My husband and I moved in a few months ago." "Your parents are amazing. They gave us such a great deal, way below market price. It's been a lifesaver for us." I gritted my teeth. "A great deal? Below market price?" So not only had my parents rented out the place I bought them, but they were giving their tenants a discount? Meanwhile, they were living in my apartment. I was going to be sick. I left without another word. When I got back home, I found my parents sitting in the living room like they owned the place. My mother was scrolling through her phone, my father watching TV. My TV? In my apartment. I slammed the door behind me. They both jumped. "Oh, you're home early," my mother said, putting her phone down. "We were just about to, eh?" "Who is Rachel?" I cut in. They exchanged a glance. My father sighed. "So you went to the apartment?" "Yes. And I met the people who live there. The people who are paying you rent. Want to tell me why you're living here while they get to enjoy the place I bought for you?" My mother let out a small, nervous laugh. "Sweetheart, you're overreacting. We're not really living here. It's just, you've been here for 3 months. I snapped. Silence. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why are you doing this? Why rent out the apartment at all? You said you wanted more space. You said your old place was too cramped. What changed?" My father shrugged. "It just made sense. We figured, why not let someone else live there and make a little extra money? We're retired, we need the income." I stared at him in disbelief. "No, you don't. You don't need extra money. I bought that place for you so you wouldn't have to worry about rent." "Well, now we have money and a place to stay," my mother said, as if this was a perfectly reasonable solution. "It's a win-win." I let out a bitter laugh. "A win-win for you? What about me? Where's my win?" My mother frowned. "Oh, come on. You live alone in this big apartment. We thought it would be nice to have some family around." I was shaking. "Nice for who?" My father waved a hand dismissively. "Stop being dramatic. You act like we're a burden. Because you are." The words flew out before I could stop them. They both went silent. My mother looked at me like I had slapped her. My father's expression darkened. "Wow," my mother whispered. "So this is how you really feel?" I pressed my fingers to my temples. "No. This is how I feel after finding out you scammed me. You could have told me. You could have been honest. Instead, you just took advantage of me. And you don't even feel bad about it." My father leaned forward, his voice calm but ice-cold. "Let's get one thing straight. We are your parents. We gave you life. We raised you. We made sacrifices for you. Here it comes. You wouldn't be where you are today without us," he continued. "And now that you're successful, all we ask is a little support. Instead of being grateful, you're acting like we're criminals." I let out a sharp breath. "You don't want support. You want a free ride." "That's not fair," my mother muttered. "Really?" I shot back. "Because let's review, I bought you a home. Instead of living in it, you rented it out to strangers and moved into my place. Now you're living here, eating my food, using my utilities, enjoying my space while collecting rent. But somehow I'm the bad guy." Neither of them said anything. I folded my arms. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. You have 2 options." They perked up slightly. 1, you move back into your apartment. I don't care if you break the lease, I don't care what it takes, but you live in the home I bought you. No more playing landlord." My mother scoffed. "And the second option? You start paying me rent." A thick silence filled the room. My father's face turned red. "You want us to pay you?" "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "Fair is fair, right?" My mother let out a harsh laugh. "Wow. You really have no heart, do you?" I stared at her. No, Mom. I just finally have boundaries. My father slammed his hands on the coffee table. You're being ridiculous. No, I said. I'm being done. I turned on my heel and walked out of the room, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The aftermath. I didn't hear from my parents for 2 days. Which honestly was a miracle. For the first time in months, my apartment felt like mine again. No one leaving dirty dishes in the sink. No one blasting the TV while I was trying to work. No one taking up my couch like it was theirs. But I knew it wouldn't last. And sure enough, on the 3rd day, my mother called. We need to talk, she said. I sighed. Are you moving back into your apartment? She scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. Just come home. Home. As if my own apartment wasn't my home anymore. But fine. I was done arguing over the phone. I needed to say this to their faces one last time. I drove back, mentally preparing for another exhausting conversation. But the moment I walked in, I knew something was off. The place was too quiet. Too tense. Then I saw my father sitting at the kitchen table, his arms crossed. My mother stood beside him, her lips pressed into a thin line. And across from them was my Uncle David. I barely contained an eye roll. So that's their plan. David was my father's older brother. A traditionalist in every sense of the word. A man who believed that children, no matter their age, owed their parents lifelong loyalty and financial support. He was here to talk some sense into me. I sighed and dropped my keys on the counter. Let's get this over with. David wasted no time. Your parents told me what's been going on, he said, his voice slow and deliberate like he was speaking to a child. I have to say, I'm disappointed in you. I crossed my arms. Good to see you too, Uncle. He ignored that. They raised you. They sacrificed for you. And now you want to charge them rent. He let out a humorless chuckle. I don't know how you can look at yourself in the mirror. I clenched my jaw. Did they also tell you they rented out the apartment I bought for them? And decided to move into my home while I was away without telling me? David waved a dismissive hand. So what? They're just being practical. Practical. I scoffed. They're collecting rent from a place I bought for them while living in my apartment, eating my food, using my utilities, all without asking. They're your parents. His voice hardened. What's yours is theirs. There it was. The golden rule of entitled families. I turned to my mother. So that's how you see it? My money, my home, it's all yours. She hesitated. Just for a second. But my father had no shame. We gave you life, he said. You wouldn't have any of this without us. I laughed. Right? Because you were the ones working overtime? You were the ones paying off student loans? You were the ones grinding for every promotion? Silence. I shook my head. You want to talk about sacrifice? Let's talk about the years I spent making sure you were comfortable. The money I poured into making sure you never had to worry about rent again. And instead of gratitude, I got manipulation. David's face darkened. You're being dramatic. No, I snapped. I'm being realistic. And I'm done. I turned back to my parents. Final offer, move back into your apartment. Or find somewhere else to live. My mother gasped like I just smacked her. You can't do this to us. I can. And I am. My father scoffed. If you walk out that door, don't expect to be welcome in this family again. I met his glare head on. Then I guess this is goodbye. And just like that, I turned and walked out. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying their weight. For the first time in my life, I was free. Or so I thought. A few weeks later, my phone rang. My mother. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Then curiosity won. I picked up. Sweetheart, she said, her voice shaking. We need your help. I sighed. Let me guess. The apartment. A pause. Then, the tenants, she let out a ragged breath. They trashed the place. We went to check on it today and oh God. I rubbed my temples. How bad? Her voice cracked. They destroyed everything. The walls, the floors, the furniture. The kitchen cabinets are ripped off. And the bathroom, she let out a sob. They left it in ruins. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Frustration. Exhaustion. But mostly? Cold, brutal vindication. And now, she whispered, we need $20,000 for repairs. I let the silence stretch long enough for her to feel it. Then finally I said, not my problem. There was a long, painful silence. Then my mother let out a breathless laugh. Sweetheart, you're joking, right? I leaned back in my chair, gripping my phone tighter. No, Mom. I'm not. Another pause. Then her voice sharpened. Don't be ridiculous. This is serious. We need to fix that apartment immediately. The damage is, it's catastrophic. Yeah? I said, my tone flat. Maybe you should have thought about that before renting it out to strangers. Her breath hitched. We didn't know they'd do this. We trusted them. I let out a humorless laugh. Oh, so now you know what it feels like to trust someone, only to be completely screwed over? She went silent. I heard my father in the background, muttering something. Then he grabbed the phone. Listen, he said, his voice tense. We don't have time for your attitude. The repairs will cost 20 grand. You have the money. Just transfer it and let's get this sorted out. I clenched my jaw. The sheer audacity. You don't get to order me to do anything, I said coldly. Stop acting like a child, he barked. This is your family. You think you can just turn your back on us? I inhaled sharply. Funny. That's exactly what you did when you rented out the apartment I bought for you and moved into my place instead. That was different. I laughed bitterly. Right? Different because you were the ones benefiting. I laughed bitterly. Right? Different because you were the ones benefiting. I heard my mother sniffle. Then, in a smaller voice, she said, Please, we don't have the money for this. I ran a hand through my hair. This was it. The moment where the old me, the dutiful son who always bailed them out, would have cracked. But I wasn't that person anymore. I took a deep breath. And then, finally, I said it. I'm not giving you a cent. Silence. Then my father snapped. Are you insane? That apartment is ruined. You expect us to cover $20,000 on our own. I smiled darkly. Yes, I do. My mother let out a choked sob. How can you do this to us? No, I said, my voice steady. How could you do this to me? I heard my father curse under his breath. Then he hissed. If you don't help us, we'll have no choice but to sell the apartment. And there it was. Their last desperate attempt to guilt me into submission. I exhaled slowly. Then I shrugged. Fine. Fine? My mother gasped. Yeah, I said. Sell it. Do whatever you want. It's your problem. A stunned silence filled the line. Then my father's voice turned ice cold. If you let this happen, don't expect to be part of this family anymore. I almost laughed. I had already lost my family the moment I became their personal ATM. So I just smiled and said, Goodbye, Dad. And then I hung up. The aftermath. I didn't hear from them for a week. I figured they were scrambling, trying to figure out their next move now that their golden goose had finally flown away. Then, one evening, I got a text from my cousin. Dude, your parents are telling everyone you abandoned them in their time of need. I sighed. Of course they were. I texted back. Cool. Did they also tell you how they scammed me into buying them an apartment, then turned around and rented it out while mooching off me? A minute later, my cousin replied, Wait, what? I smirked. Bingo. The call from Uncle David. The next day, my Uncle David, Mr. Family Loyalty, called me. What is going on? He demanded. Your parents are telling the whole family you left them to suffer. But now I'm hearing a different story. I leaned back on my couch. Oh? And what exactly did you hear? He hesitated. Then, begrudgingly, he said, that they might have rented out the apartment you bought for them, and that they were living with you instead. I grinned. So they finally admitted it, huh? Well, not exactly. I laughed. Let me guess. They told you I kicked them out, and refused to help them when they fell on hard times. Silence. I shook my head. Yeah, thought so. David let out a heavy sigh. Look, I don't agree with what they did, but at the end of the day, they're still your parents. No, I said. At the end of the day, they're adults who made their own decisions, and now they can deal with the consequences. David hesitated. Then, finally, he said, I guess I can't argue with that. You bet he couldn't. The final blow. A month passed. Then, one day, I got another call from my mother. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me to. Hello. There was a long pause. Then, in the softest voice I'd ever heard from her, she whispered, We sold the apartment. I closed my eyes. Okay. We had to sell it for less than we bought it for, she admitted. The damage was too much. Buyers weren't willing to pay full price. I didn't say anything. Her voice wavered. Your father and I are struggling. We used what little we had to cover our debts. We don't have enough left for rent. We don't know where to go. And there it was. The moment they'd been trying to avoid. The moment they finally had to face reality. For the first time, my mother wasn't scolding me. She wasn't manipulating me. She was just lost. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Mom. Her breath hitched. Does that mean? No, I said gently. It means I'm sorry you put yourselves in this situation. But it's not my job to fix it. Silence. Then she let out a quiet, broken, I understand. And for the first time, I think she actually did. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Sweetheart. My mother's voice cracked like she couldn't believe what she had just heard. Did you just say, not my problem? I leaned back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Yes, Mom, I said, my voice calm steady. Not my problem. I could practically hear her world shattering. But we don't have that kind of money, she stammered. And the apartment, it's ruined. We need help fixing it before we can sell it. I let out a dry chuckle. Well, maybe you should have lived in it instead of trying to make a quick buck. We made a mistake, she admitted, her voice small. But you can't just. I cut in. And I will. Then my father's voice came through, sharp and angry. Enough of this nonsense. We're your parents. You owe us. There it was again. That entitlement. That absolute belief that my existence was nothing more than a lifelong debt to them. And that's when I knew. They weren't sorry. Not really. They weren't devastated because they had lost the apartment. They were devastated because they had lost control over me. I took a deep breath. Let me make something crystal clear. I don't owe you anything. I bought you a home out of love and you chose to exploit that generosity. You turned my gift into a business, then expected me to just sit back while you lived in my apartment like it was your right. Do not speak to your father like that, my mother snapped. You have no idea what it's like to be in our position. We're struggling. I scoffed. Struggling? You had passive income handed to you and you still managed to ruin it. My father's voice dropped to a deadly calm. You're really going to abandon your own parents over this? I let out a slow breath. No. I abandoned you when you made it clear I was nothing more than a wallet to you. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, fine, my father spat. If that's how you feel, then we're done. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel guilt. I felt relief. Good, I said simply. I hope your tenants were worth it. And then I hung up. The aftermath. I won't lie, part of me expected them to call back. To beg. To try and manipulate me one last time. But they didn't. For the first few weeks, I kept waiting for my phone to buzz for some dramatic voicemail about how I was heartless, about how I had let them down. But all I got was silence. They had made their choice. And so had I. Months passed. And you know what? My life got better. I didn't wake up to passive-aggressive texts. I didn't come home to find my fridge mysteriously empty. I didn't have to tiptoe around my own space, afraid of offending the people who were using me. I lived for me. I took a trip overseas, my first real vacation in years. I finally started saving for a home of my own, something that would never be taken advantage of again. And most importantly, I stopped feeling guilty for putting myself first. Then one evening I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Rachel, the tenant from your parents' apartment. I frowned. Rachel? Yeah, just thought you should know. I ran into your mom the other day. She looked rough. I hesitated. What do you mean? They lost the apartment. I blinked. What? Yeah. The damages were so bad they couldn't afford the repairs. They defaulted on their mortgage and the bank took it back. I stared at the message, processing. Everything they had schemed for, everything they had manipulated me over. Gone. And for a brief moment I felt something close to pity. Then Rachel sent one last message. She said she regrets everything. But she also said she's too proud to call you. I exhaled slowly. Good. I blocked the number. And just like that I was finally completely free.